A high school boy walks into a classroom with blood on his uniform, holding a fire extinguisher in his hand. His eyes are cold, and without hesitation, he swings the extinguisher and knocks a student to the ground. Panic spreads across the room as another boy rushes to help, but he is also struck down instantly. This boy is Yun Seun, and no one in that room expected this quiet top student to become this dangerous person in the school. It all started when he transferred to a new school. He is known as the top student in his class. He is extremely intelligent, and every day he spends all his time studying. He does not talk to anyone, and because of this, his classmates do not respect him. Instead, they feel uncomfortable around him, and some of them even resent him for being better than them. One day, Seun wins first place in a math competition. As he stands in front of the class holding his certificate, no one claps for him. However, when another student named John Youngbeom receives an award for third place, the entire class suddenly applauds him loudly. This clearly shows who truly holds influence in that classroom. Youngbeom is not the smartest student, but he is the most feared student in the class. He leads a group of bullies who control the class. All they do is intimidating weaker students and often take money from them. Because of this, most students avoid him, and even teachers do not interfere much. After losing to Seun in the math competition, Youngbeom becomes jealous. So he starts targeting Seun and tries to intimidate him. However, Seun does not react at all. He continues studying as if nothing is happening. This lack of fear frustrates Youngbeom even more. Around this time, another student begins to stand out. His name is On Soo-ho. One day, the school's basketball team storms into the classroom carrying metal rods. They are looking for Soo-ho because he had beaten one of their teammates earlier. The situation looks dangerous as they surround him, ready to attack. However, things do not go as expected. Even though he is outnumbered, Soo-ho fights back and defeats all of them alone. His movements are fast and precise, and it becomes clear that he has real fighting experience. In fact, he used to be an MMA fighter. From that moment, everyone understands that Soo-ho is someone they should not mess with. After school, Seun returns home and shows his father the certificate he received. His father is pleased and praises him, but Seun does not feel happy. Even at home, he feels completely alone. His parents are divorced, and he lives with his father, who is always busy working. His mother works far away, and he rarely sees her in person. Most of the time, he can only watch her through videos. Because of this, Seun grows up without warmth or emotional support. This is why he becomes quiet. The next morning, Seun arrives at school early as usual. He notices Soo-ho sleeping peacefully in the classroom. Unlike Seun, Soo-ho seems relaxed and unbothered by everything around him. Later that day, they have a physical education class. However, Seun realizes that his gym jacket is missing. He suspects that Youngbeom took it, but since he has no proof. With no other choice, he attends the class wearing his school uniform. Even though he is excellent in academics, but he is physically weak. He struggles during the PE class and clearly stands out. After the class ends, Seun approaches Youngbeom and tells him to stop acting cowardly if he thinks he is strong. This statement humiliates Youngbeom in front of his gang. They immediately grab Seun by the collar and threaten him. Just as things are about to escalate, a teacher arrives and stops them. As usual, Youngbeom and his group pretend that they were only joking. Not long after, a new student named Bumsuk transfers into the class. He comes from a wealthy background, but he hides this fact because he does not want others to use him for money. Later, Seun returns to the classroom and calmly tells Youngbeom to move away from his desk. The entire class becomes silent. To be frank, Youngbeom is not used to being spoken to like this, and he becomes angry instantly. Sensing danger, Seun quietly takes out a pen, and get ready to defend himself no matter the consequences that will follow. Before the situation can escalate, Soo-ho suddenly speaks up and tells them to be quiet because they are disturbing his sleep. This simple interruption ends the confrontation, but the tension continues to grow. That night, Youngbeom and his gang gather at a club. They drink alcohol mixed with drugs and meet a dealer, who is also Youngbeom's cousin. Youngbeom asks him a very specific question. He wants to know what would happen if a drug like fentanyl is applied directly to human skin. And the dealer explains that it can cause egg dizziness, confusion, blurred vision, nausea, and even loss of control. The next day, the students have an important exam. Seun is fully prepared as always. But Youngbeom arrives late and calls Bumsuk aside. He takes him to a storage room and threatens him. He orders him to apply the drug to Seun during the exam. Bumsuk out of fear has no choice but to agree. During the test, he approaches Seun from behind, pretending that there is a bug on Siyun's neck. At first, Siyun did not notice anything. But after some minutes, his vision becomes blurry, and his body starts to feel weak. As the result of it, he struggles to concentrate and realizes that something is wrong. He quickly leaves the classroom to recover, and when he returns, he finally understands that someone drugged him. So instead of giving up, he starts slapping himself hard to stay conscious. Again and again, he hits himself to force his body to stay awake. At this moment, the entire class watches him in shock. Unfortunately, no one understands what he is doing, but he refuses to lose control. After the exam ends, the young man reviews his answers only to realize that he made one mistake. This moment explodes all the pressure, frustration, and anger that he has been holding inside of him. Without thinking twice, he stands up and he takes out his pen. And without warning, he stabs one of Young Byum's friends and then turns to Young Byum himself. He strikes him repeatedly, causing blood to flow down his face as he falls to the ground. The entire class is in shock seeing the boy who was feared by everyone is now completely powerless. And the quiet student no one respected has become the most dangerous person in the room. Just as Siyun tries to stab him again, Suho quickly steps in and throws him aside because he understands that things have gone too far. Even then, Siyun tries to continue fighting and grabs a chair, but Suho blocks him again. At that moment, a teacher enters the classroom, and the situation finally stops. After the incident, Young Byum is taken to the hospital. Siyun is brought to face Young Byum's parents. Young Byum denies everything, but Siyun calmly presents the truth. The drugs are found in Young Byum's bag, and there is clear evidence of what happened. To fix things, the school decides to transfer Young Byum to another institution to avoid damaging their reputation. That night, Siyun returns home pretending like nothing about what happened, but his father notices something is wrong but refuses to show much concern. To him, it is just a normal teenage fight. The next day, two of Young Byum's friends approach Siyun. They are filled with anger and demand that he meet them after school. Without any atom of fear, he calmly agrees and takes them to the restroom as other students follows to witness him been beaten. To prove he is not scared at all, he locks the door so that nobody dare to separate them. The two boys suddenly feel uneasy. They remember what happened the last time Siyun lost control. As Siyun walks toward them with a pen in his hand, they freeze in fear. However, instead attacking them, he simply tells them to stay out of his life and then walk away. From that moment, everything begins to change. Students who once ignored him now start praising him. Meanwhile, Young Byum is still filled with anger. After being transferred, he meets his cousin Subdae, who warns him not to do anything reckless. However, Young Byum refuses to let things go. He asks Subdae to beat Siyun and even offers to pay him for it. On the same night, Siyun is walking home when he notices Suho working. In addition to being a student, Suho works part-time as a delivery worker. He does this every evening to support himself. Since he lost his parents, he has been living with his grandmother and has to take care of his own expenses. Because of his work schedule, he sometimes chooses to sleep at school instead of going home late and risking being late the next morning. The next morning, when he sees Suho sleeping in the classroom, he decides not to wake him up. What he just did is a small action, but it shows the beginning of something new. From that point on, Siyun and Suho slowly begin to grow closer, even though Siyun still struggles to express himself openly. At the same time, Young Byum continues planning his revenge. He meets Subdae again to discuss the task he gave him, but Subdae refuses to get involved directly. As someone working in a debt collection organization, he prefers not to take unnecessary risks. Back at school, Bumsuk tries to apologize to Siyun for what he did during the exam because he feels guilty and even offers to pay his schools if necessary. However, Siyun ignores him completely. Soon after, the situation becomes more dangerous. Siyun is suddenly stopped by Young Byum and Subdae's group. They forcefully take him away to an isolated location. Bumsuk witnesses this and immediately runs to inform Suho. At first, Suho does not see it as his problem. He is focused on going to work and earning money. However, when Bumsuk offers to pay him double his salary, he changes his mind and quickly goes after them. Meanwhile, Siyun finds himself surrounded by multiple attackers. Even though he is physically weak, he remains calm and carefully analyzes the situation and uses whatever is available to defend himself. He manages to fight off some of them, but more attackers keep coming. Then, Young Byum appears and begins taking his revenge. He brutally beats Siyun and even attempts to break his arms so that he can never return to school. At that moment, Suho arrives and without hesitation, he jumps into the fight and begins overpowering everyone with his skills. However, Subdae challenges Suho and sends his men to fight him. While Suho is busy dealing with them, Young Beam and his friends try to take advantage of the situation and attack Seyoon again. Young Beam even tries to hit Seyoon with a glass bottle. Since Suho is still occupied, he cannot intervene immediately. Fortunately, Bumsuk arrives at the right moment and manages to stop the attack, saving Seyoon. Eventually, Subday decides to withdraw and leaves the scene while Young Beam is left standing alone, realizing that he has once again failed. After this incident, the relationship between Seyoon, Suho, and Bumsuk begins to change. Suho brings both of them to the restaurant where he works and tells them that they need to help him since he was late because of them. That evening, they spend time together, sharing a meal. Even though Seyoon still finds it difficult to socialize, this moment marks the beginning of their friendship. While things seem to calm down on the surface, new problems are already forming behind the scenes. Subday returns to his boss, a man named Gil-soo, and reports what happened. Gil-soo is not pleased at all. He sees Subday's failure as a weakness. So instead of giving him another task, he punishes him by beating him with a wooden stick. This clearly shows how dangerous and unforgiving Gil-soo is. Afterward, Subday meets Young Beam again. This time, instead of refusing, he asks Young Beam to bring Seyoon to him. It becomes clear that something bigger is about to happen. Around this time, Seyoon crosses paths with a girl named Young E, who is secretly part of Subday's group. He first notices her while she is shoplifting at a store. Even though he sees what she is doing, he chooses to ignore it and walks away without saying anything. However, Young E approaches him outside and starts talking to him as if they already know each other. She quickly acts friendly and asks him to go with her to a restaurant. During their conversation, Young E tries to get closer to him. She tells him that she likes him and even asks for his phone number. Seyoon does not react much, but he listens carefully, as he always does. The next day, Young Beam approaches Seyoon again and asks to speak with him privately. This time, he acts differently. Instead of threatening him, he appears desperate. He tells Seyoon that he wants him to testify in court and say that he was not responsible for the fentanyl incident. He explains that he is the only one supporting his parents and that if he is sent to a juvenile detention center, his family will suffer. For a moment, Seyoon hesitates. Even though Young Beam is the one who caused everything, Seyoon begins to feel a sense of guilt. In the end, he agrees to help him. Later, Seyoon leaves with Young Beam and the others, believing they are heading to court. However, something feels off. Instead of going to the courthouse, Young Beam leads them to an underground parking lot. At that moment, Seyoon realizes that it was all a trap. They are surrounded by Gil-soo and his gang. Gil-soo immediately takes control of the situation and demands a large amount of money from them. He claims that the money is needed to cover Subday's medical expenses after his arm was broken. However, Suho quickly understands the truth. He knows that Gil-soo is lying. In reality, Gil-soo himself was responsible for breaking Subday's arm. He is simply using this situation as an excuse to extort money from them. Gil-soo gives them 3 days to gather the money. If they fail, he offers to lend them the money himself, which would trap them in an endless cycle of debt. And he also makes it clear that if they refuse, he is willing to kill them. From that moment, Seyoon and his friends are forced into a dangerous situation. They have no choice but to follow Gil-soo's orders while looking for a way out. Desperate for a solution, Seyoon contacts Young E and asks her for information about Gil-soo. They arrange to meet at a restaurant. During their meeting, Young E reveals the truth. She explains that Gil-soo is extremely dangerous and will do anything for money, even murder. She warns Seyoon that escaping him will not be easy because he has strong connections with criminals. She also advises him to simply pay the money if he wants to stay safe. Meanwhile, Bumsuk decides to take matters into his own hands. In order to gather the money, he steals his father's expensive watch and plans to sell it. After 3 days, the deadline finally arrives. Bumsuk successfully gathers the full amount by selling the watch and hands over the money. However, he lies to his friends and tells them that his father gave him the money willingly. Seyoon and Suho find it hard to believe that his father would give him such a large amount of money without question. Instead of handing the money over, they decide to fight back. Seyoon reveals the information he learned from Young E. He explains that Gil-soo is running an illegal gambling operation that specifically targets high school students. New users are given bonus money to lure them in, but the system is designed to make them lose everything once they become addicted. When they run out of money, Gil-soo's group offers them loans, trapping them in debt and forcing them to give up their valuables. This is how Gil-soo controls his victims. Seyoon also reveals that all of Gil-soo's important items, including drugs and money, are stored in a secure metal box. Using this information, they come up with a plan. They call the police and lead them to the location. Later that day, Gil-soo and his gang are waiting for them again. Soo-ho decides to handle the situation himself. He tells the others that he will meet Gil-soo alone and try to bring him to his office so they can gather more evidence. Meanwhile, Si-eun prepares to contact the police again. At first, Gil-soo is surprised that Soo-ho knows about his illegal activities. But when Soo-ho mentions Sub-dae, Gil-soo realizes that the situation is serious. He reluctantly agrees and takes Soo-ho to his office. Before leaving, Young-e tells Gil-soo that she will stay behind at school. Later, she meets Si-eun and gives him the address of the office. At the same time, Bumsuk becomes worried and follows Soo-ho in a taxi. While in the taxi, Soo-ho secretly sends the location to Si-eun. However, Gil-soo becomes suspicious and asks for Soo-ho's phone. When Soo-ho refuses, he is suddenly attacked and knocked to the ground. Realizing that he is about to be exposed, he gathers all his valuables and runs away. Shortly after, Bumsuk arrives at the scene and sees Gil-soo trying to escape. Not understanding what is happening, he tries to give him the money, but Gil-soo ignores him and drags him away with him. Meanwhile, Si-eun arrives with the police, but the office is empty. Since they do not have a warrant, the police cannot proceed further. Out of frustration, Si-eun breaks into the office himself. Inside, he finds blood on the floor and he tries calling Soo-ho, but there is no response. At that moment, he realizes that things have become much more serious. As the situation grows more dangerous, the people around Gil-soo also begin to turn against him. Sub-dae realizes that Gil-soo has discovered that both he and Young-e have been secretly helping Si-eun. Because of this, Gil-soo threatens Young-e directly. He tells them that if they do not come to a specific location called Mandong, he will sell her younger brother, Sunshine. Sub-dae immediately decides to face Gil-soo. Before leaving, he gives Young-e his bank card and tells her to hide in a hotel. However, Young-e refuses to let him go alone. Instead, she asks Si-eun to install a tracking application so that they can follow Sub-dae's location in real time. When Sub-dae and Young-e arrive at the location, they quickly realize that the situation is worse than expected. Gil-soo has already captured Soo-ho and Bumsuk. Both of them are being held as hostages. At the same time, Si-eun begins moving toward the location, following the tracking signal. Back at the scene, Gil-soo discovers that Young-e has betrayed him. Without hesitation, he attacks Sub-dae. Since Sub-dae's arm is still injured, he struggles to defend himself. Gil-soo beats him relentlessly, showing no mercy. Gil-soo then prepares to kill Soo-ho and Bumsuk. At that critical moment, Sub-dae forces himself to stand up and continues fighting despite his injuries. He refuses to give up, even though he is clearly weaker. Just then, Gil-soo pulls out a knife and gains the upper hand again. Just as things seem hopeless, Young-e manages to break free for a moment and strikes Gil-soo on the head. However, she is not strong enough to stop him completely. Right then, the sound of police sirens fills the air. Hearing this, Gil-soo and his gang immediately panic and begin to flee. Si-eun arrives and confidently tells Gil-soo to surrender, claiming that the police have surrounded the area. However, it soon becomes clear that the siren sound was fake. Si-eun used his phone to create the illusion of police presence in order to buy time. Realizing this, Gil-soo becomes furious, and another fight breaks out. At the same time, real police officers finally arrive at the scene. Some officers attempt to arrest Gil-soo and his group, while others chase after Sub-dae and Young-e as they try to escape. Despite this, Gil-soo manages to break free and run away. Si-eun immediately chases after him. The two run through the streets until Si-eun finally catches up. However, when they start fighting, it becomes clear that Si-eun is physically outmatched. Just as he begins to lose, Soo-ho arrives. Even after everything he has gone through, Soo-ho steps in to protect Si-eun. A new fight begins between Soo-ho and Gil-soo. Because of his MMA background, Soo-ho is able to dominate the fight. He overpowers Gil-soo and eventually defeats him. This time, the police arrive in time and successfully arrest him. After everything ends, Sub-dae turns himself in to the police voluntarily. Before being taken away, he tells Young-e to leave the area with her younger brother and live safely. Meanwhile, the case is handed over to a lawyer who works closely with Bumsuk's father. Bumsuk's father is not an ordinary man. He is a powerful and respected politician. Because of this, the situation quickly becomes complicated. The lawyer makes it clear that the case will not be openly discussed. Instead, everything will be handled privately through Bumsuk's father. He even tells Bumsuk that he has permission to attack Gil-soo if he wants to, but Bumsuk refuses. Despite everything, he does not want to hurt anyone. Gil-soo mocks him, calling him the weakest among his friends and claiming that Seun and Soo-ho never truly saw him as an equal. These words begin to affect Bumsuk deeply. After leaving the police station, Seun meets Young-i again. She apologizes for everything that has happened. Later, they visit Soo-ho at the hospital. Seun explains that Bumsuk's father wants to keep the entire case hidden. However, after Young-i joins their group, Bumsuk starts to notice that Soo-ho talks to her more and even follows her on social media, while ignoring him. These small moments begin to build up inside him as he feels like he is being replaced. Even when they hang out together, he cannot enjoy it anymore. He starts isolating himself emotionally while pretending that everything is normal. One night, while they are at a karaoke bar, Bumsuk leaves the room to get drinks. While he is outside, he encounters students from his previous school. These students used to bully him in the past. When he returns, he becomes angry when Young-i tells that she picked his call. His reaction is stronger than expected, showing that his emotional state is becoming unstable. The next day at school, Bumsuk becomes angry at his classmates and lashes out at them. When they accuse him of becoming arrogant after joining Seun and Soo-ho, he becomes even more frustrated. Even when Soo-ho tries to calm him down, Bumsuk pushes him away and tells him not to touch him. From that moment, it becomes clear that something inside Bumsuk is breaking. One day, Seun and Soo-ho decide to visit Bumsuk's house to check on him. When they arrive, they are shocked by how luxurious his home is. This is when Bumsuk finally explains that he is not his father's biological son. He was adopted after his father became a politician. He also reveals that the reason he transferred schools was because he was severely bullied at his previous school. The same bullies have started contacting him again, demanding that he meet them. This brings back all the trauma he experienced before. Soo-ho suggests confronting them directly so he could force them to apologize. Later, the three of them go to meet the bullies. At first, the bullies pretend that nothing ever happened and act as if they were always friends with Bumsuk. However, when Soo-ho threatens them, they finally admit their actions and apologize. But Bumsuk cannot control himself. He suddenly slaps one of them and tries to attack again using a microphone. Soo-ho quickly stops him, reminding him that they came for closure, not revenge. This leads to a heated argument between them. Bumsuk accuses Soo-ho of always acting superior and treating him like someone beneath him. He even claims that Soo-ho never saw him as a real friend. Soo-ho becomes angry and denies this, reminding him of everything he has done for him. The argument becomes intense until Seun steps in and separates them. For the first time, he chooses to separate himself from Seun and Soo-ho. Even though he had always respected Seun and never once argued with him, something inside him has already changed. The loneliness he tried to ignore has now taken control of him. As he walks home, the bullies from his previous school keep calling his phone again and again. They are trying to track him down and force him to meet them. This constant pressure continues to build inside him. On his way, Bumsuk encounters another group led by Young-chan and Tae-han. At the same time, the bullies who had been calling him are spotted nearby. However, instead of targeting Bumsuk, Young-chan's group turns their attention toward the bullies. Since they come from a more elite and powerful school, they see an opportunity to take advantage of them. The bullies are terrified and quickly hand over their money without resistance. Bumsuk watches everything silently. Then suddenly, he rushes forward and attacks the leader of the bully group. After releasing his anger, he runs away from the scene. Young-chan and his group are impressed by what they just saw. From that point, Bumsuk starts spending more time with Young-chan's group. He begins going out with them at night, drinking at clubs and enjoying a lifestyle he had never experienced before. Because of his financial background, he pays for everything, and this makes the group treat him with respect. For the first time in a long time, Bumsuk feels like he belongs somewhere. As a result, he slowly distances himself from Soo-ho and even unfollows him on social media, making his decision clear. The next day at school, Bumsuk arrives late. That is, Seun notices the change in his behavior and tries to talk to him. However, Bumsuk ignores him and instead spends time with Young-chan's group. They thank him for paying for their expenses. Seun becomes concerned. He approaches Bumsuk and asks him what is going on. At first, Bumsuk denies everything, but eventually, he tells Seun that he is angry at Soo-ho. He feels that Soo-ho always looks down on him and never treated him as an equal. He believes that Soo-ho controls him rather than seeing him as a true friend. Seun becomes more worried because he is certain that Young-chan's group is only using Bumsuk for his money. So he confronts them directly and tells them to stay away from him. However, they ignore him and claim that Bumsuk is giving them money willingly. During lunch one day, Young-chan's group cuts in line, ignoring everyone else. Suho becomes angry and tells them to follow the rules. However, Bumsuk stands up for them and refuses to listen to Suho. This triggers a reaction as Suho forcefully pushes Bumsuk to the ground, causing a scene in front of everyone. Seun quickly steps in and stops the situation from escalating further. But for Bumsuk, the damage is already done. He feels humiliated and leaves the scene immediately. After that, Bumsuk takes a dangerous step. He asks Young-chan to find someone who can beat up Suho. Young-chan suggests a fighter named Woo Young, who is known for his strength and skills. They watch videos of him and see that he is indeed a powerful fighter, with rumors suggesting he might join professional competitions in the future. Eventually, he meets Woo Young and offers him money to beat Suho up. He specifically asks for the fight to happen on Saturday, which is Suho's birthday. In order to increase their chances of winning, Young-chan's group comes up with a plan to weaken Suho before the fight. They secretly tamper with the brakes on Suho's motorcycle. As expected, Suho loses control while riding and gets into an accident. Although he survives, but his leg is injured. He suspects that Bumsuk might be responsible, but he chooses not to say anything. When Saturday final comes, Seun and Young-e prepare a small surprise to celebrate Suho's birthday. At the same time, Bumsuk begins putting the final part of his plan into motion. He contacts Young-e and tells her that he wants to meet her to give Suho a birthday gift. So he asks her to keep it a secret so that it can be a surprise. Trusting him, Young-e agrees and goes to meet him without informing Seun or Suho. However, the moment she arrives, Bumsuk's behavior becomes cold, and it becomes clear that this was never about a gift. He has taken Young-e hostage and his goal is to force Suho to come to him. Meanwhile, Seun and Suho wait for Young-e, but she does not return. Just then, Seun eventually notices messages on Suho's phone. He sees the address sent by Bumsuk and realizes that something is wrong. Without telling Suho the truth, he reply and delete the message himself and decides to go alone. When he arrives at the location, he is holding a wrench. Everyone is surprised to see him instead of Suho. Immediately he tells Young-e to run away. Then, without hesitation, he attacks Young-chan's group using the wrench. The fight becomes intense. Young-beom is also present and is eager for revenge. However, once again, he fails to defeat Seun. As the fight continues, Seun picks up a crowbar and prepares to fight all of them. But at that moment, Woo Young appears. The situation changes because Woo Young is a trained fighter, and Seun cannot match him physically. Even with a weapon, Seun struggles to defend himself. Seeing this, Young-beom tries to take advantage of the situation and attacks him as well. However, Bumsuk suddenly steps in and stops him. He tells Young-beom that Seun is not part of their issue. But despite everything, Bumsuk still does not hold hatred toward Seun. The boys continues to beat him to the point he cannot defend himself anymore. Bumsuk cannot bear to watch this, so he turns away. At that moment, Woo Young demands his payment, saying that he has already defeated one person. Suddenly, the sound of police sirens is heard. Everyone panics and begins to run away. Seun is left alone on the ground, badly injured. That night, Suho wakes up at home and realizes that his friends never returned. At the same time, Seun is taken to the hospital. When the police question him, he tells them that it was an accident and that he was alone. He also asks Young-e not to tell Suho anything. At the same time, Bumsuk is overwhelmed with guilt. After what happened, he isolates himself in his room and refuses to go to school because he cannot stop thinking about how Seun was beaten because of him. Instead of his father understanding him, he focuses on protecting his own reputation. He assigns someone to watch over Bumsuk at all times and begins making arrangements to transfer him to a school in the Philippines. Meanwhile, Suho continues going to school as usual. He does not know what happened that night, but he can feel that something is wrong. Seun has stopped coming to school, and Bumsuk has disappeared as well. So he tries calling Seun multiple times. So he decides to visit Seun's house, but no one is there. As he walks home, he cannot shake the feeling that something serious has happened. With no other options, Suho approaches Young-chan and his group. At first, they pretend not to know anything about Bumsuk. However, during the conversation, Suho casually mentions that he needs Bumsuk to pay for the damage done to his motorcycle. This catches them off guard. They are surprised that Suho already knows that Bumsuk was responsible for the accident. Meanwhile, they also start talking among themselves about Seun's absence, thinking that Suho does not know anything. But Suho hears everything and at that moment, his expression changes completely. Without hesitation, he beats them down one by one and demands the truth. Unable to endure the pain, Young-chan finally confesses everything that happened that night. After hearing the truth, Suho goes to Young-e and demands to know where Si-eun is. She tells him that Si-eun will be returning home that night. Suho immediately goes to see him. When he arrives, he is relieved to see that Si-eun is alive. However, he pretends that he does not know anything about what happened. Si-eun also hides his injuries, especially his hand. Instead of confronting him, Suho talks about something simple. He reminds Si-eun that they have an exam the next day and tells him to come to school. It is his way of showing concern without forcing the truth out. Meanwhile, Bumsuk's situation continues to worsen. His father becomes even more furious and tells him never to publicly acknowledge him as his father again. This breaks something inside Bumsuk. That night, he decides to leave home. Even when his father's assistant tries to stop him, he ignores him and gets into a taxi. The assistant quickly takes note of the taxi's license plate to track him. While inside the taxi, Bumsuk looks at his phone and sees multiple missed calls from his friends. At the same time, Suho is with Young Beam. He is pressuring him for information and demanding to know where Bumsuk is. However, Young Beam insists that he does not know anything. Suddenly, Suho receives a call from Bumsuk. He asks Suho to meet him at a gym. At the same time, Bumsuk contacts Woo Young and tells him to prepare for a fight. When Suho arrives at the gym, he sees everyone waiting. Initially, Suho did not come to fight. He only come to tell Bumsuk that if he is angry, he should take it out on him and not involve others. However, Bumsuk rejects his apology completely. This leads to another confrontation. Woo Young steps forward and challenges Suho to a fight in the boxing ring. Despite his injury, Suho accepts the challenge. Before the fight begins, he asks for a minute to warm up. Instead of stretching, he uses that time to attack everyone in the room. He quickly defeats them, clearing the way for the main fight. The fight between Suho and Woo Young begins. At first, both fighters are evenly matched. However, Woo Young quickly targets Suho's injured leg. By focusing his attacks on that area, he slowly weakens him. Despite the pain, Suho manages to knock Woo Young down with a powerful strike. During the fight, Taehan interferes and pulls Suho's leg, causing him to lose balance. Woo Young takes advantage of the moment and lands a heavy kick to Suho's head, knocking him down. At that moment, everything collapses. Bumsuk and the others begin attacking Suho together. They beat him relentlessly. The situation goes completely out of control. Soon after, Bumsuk's father's assistant and lawyer arrive. They force Bumsuk to leave immediately. But before he goes, he notices that Suho is not moving nor breathing. Panic spreads through the group and they begin to run away, leaving the scene behind. Only Young-chan and Taehan are stopped by Bumsuk's lawyer, who orders them to cooperate and follow his instructions. Bumsuk breaks down completely seeing Suho lying lifelessly. The situation is quickly covered up. Bumsuk's lawyer creates a false story, claiming that Suho collapsed while exercising. All evidence is removed. The video recording is deleted. Even messages are manipulated to make it seem like Suho is fine. The next day, Si-eun returns to school. For the first time, he cannot focus on his exam. His mind is only on Suho. Soon after, he receives a message that Suho is in the hospital. Without wasting time, he leaves school and runs to the hospital. When he arrives, he sees Suho lying unconscious. His grandmother is sitting beside him, completely devastated. For the first time, Si-eun breaks down. Meanwhile, Bumsuk locks himself in his room. When he learns that Suho is still alive, he feels both relief and scared. However, he is warned to keep everything a secret. At this point, Si-eun promises himself that he will not let this go. He goes to Young Beam's new school and attacks him again, demanding answers. Even though Young Beam was not directly involved, Si-eun still vents his anger on him. After finding out the truth through a video, Si-eun begins hunting down everyone responsible. He eventually confronts Woo Young. Despite being physically weaker, Si-eun uses his intelligence during the fight. He manipulates Woo Young's movements and uses the environment to his advantage. In the end, he breaks Woo Young's foot. Finally, Si-eun returns to face Bumsuk. But when he sees him, he cannot bring himself to attack him. Instead, both of them break down in tears. From that moment, everything changes. Suho remains in a coma. Bumsuk is sent away. And Si-eun is transferred to a new school. After everything that happened, the consequences begin to unfold for everyone involved. Siyun is initially expected to be sent to a juvenile detention center because of the violent actions he carried out at school. However, the situation takes a different turn. Bumsuk's father steps in. After reviewing the situation and seeing the video of what truly happened to Suho, he decides not to press charges against Siyun. Instead of allowing the case to become public, he uses his influence to control the outcome. However, his decision is not entirely out of kindness. Rather than punishing Siyun legally, he ensures that no school in Seoul will accept him. This effectively isolates him from the system and forces him out of his environment. In the end, only one school agrees to take him. Siyun is transferred to Eunjang High School. On the day of his transfer, both of his parents are present. This is one of the rare moments where they appear together. His father tells him that what happened was not entirely his fault. It is the closest thing to support that Siyun has ever received from him. However, the emotional distance between them still remains. Eunjang High School is very different from his previous school. It is known as a low-ranked school filled with troublemakers. When Siyun enters the classroom, everyone immediately notices him. He introduces himself calmly and takes his seat without showing any emotion. A bully approaches him, trying to test him. He appears to be a gang leader in the class. He tries to provoke him and establish dominance. He expects Siyun to react or show fear. But Siyun simply ignores him. This frustrates the student, and he becomes more aggressive. However, when Siyun finally looks at him, his expression is cold and unreadable. That single look is enough to make the student step back. For the first time, Siyun is no longer the weak, isolated student who could be ignored or bullied. If you made it this far, then you already know this story is not just about fights or school life. It is about choices, pressure, and how far someone can change when they are pushed to their limits. And the truth is, this is only the beginning. Because everything Siyun went through in this season was just building him into something much more dangerous. In the next season, he is no longer trying to survive, he is ready to face whatever comes next. So if you want to see what happens when someone like him steps into an even harsher world, make sure you don't miss it. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay ready, because the next part is going to be even more intense.